welcome to the Sound of Design
with Mark
and Dan. And we are extremely happy that you guys have joined us and are hanging out with us today. So as we get into these video episodes, they've been a lot of fun and we've had some great feedback. And so just want to remind everybody to check out our YouTube page and go ahead and share those reels and things like that. So really do appreciate it.
Yep. It's been pretty awesome just seeing the views that we're getting. But I think we need to start doing the crazy thumbnails like I was telling about, like the
hey,
something like that. Maybe that'll get us more views.
There you go.
Tell us what you think.
Well, today we're going to talk about home offices. And we may, branch out a little bit into some areas that are kind of sort of related, but it seems like the big part of what a lot of folks kind of struggle with is putting everything together. And the office just becomes this purely pragmatic kind of an approach. There's almost no design or thought put into it. And so I think we want to, we probably won't do, can't talk forever on a home office, but I think there's some things that we could probably touch on that would improve specific aspects. So if you've got an issue with, glitchy Zoom calls or, problems with certain devices not working correctly or things like that, we can't go super deep into the specifics, but we might be able to give some general principle as to what might be going on there. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and I think it's going to be very helpful. So maybe to kick us off, if your internet went out, could you do any work, Mark?
Ooh, no.
Like, not even close.
No, I mean, and the thing is where I live is apparently like in a valley. It's not. But my cell service, my wife has Verizon, I have AT&T. It's like we get like one bar if we're downstairs. So sitting here in my office that I'm in now, I might get 2 bars if I'm lucky. So even connecting to a hotspot, there's no work getting done. I got to go somewhere, right?
Yep. So in our home office, and I kind of want to start here because it is really the backbone of absolutely everything that we do, especially post-COVID. Everybody's working from home now. Let's do maybe like a quick thought process or thought experiment. Where would you start a client thinking about how to connect to the internet, and what are the practical things? Do you do Wi-Fi? Should you hardwire? Do you put your network jack in the floor? Do you put it in the wall? Like, how would you kind of start that conversation when thinking about the home office?
Sure. So as we've kind of talked about in previous episodes about networking, hardwired is always best. If you have to do Wi-Fi, okay. But hardwiring is preferred. Why? Because A, you're going to get the speed that you pay for or pretty close to it, depending on, peak times and other things like that, versus Wi-Fi, which is 50% or less in most cases of speed. And because it's been taken off the Wi-Fi, you're going to make your Wi-Fi network more robust so the devices that have to utilize it can utilize it without being interfered with. So when we're talking about pre-wires, way back in episode 1 or 2, whichever one we talked about in pre-wires, we talk a lot about Cat 6 and Ethernet. So if you're building the home office and your desk is going to be against a wall, put a Cat 6 there. If it's going to be in the middle of the room, put a Cat 6 on the floor. If you're going to have a printer, if you're going to have something along the wall, separate spaces, run multiple Cat 6s there. It's just going to make your experience better with minimal effort, so to speak, and as far as, especially if you're pre-wiring, right? You're talking pennies on the dollar to get those cables where they need to be.
Yep, absolutely. And that's part of the reason why I think I want to start there, is because you can start to unfold the design as you kind of work out from where the internet starts. So if the network is got to go to a computer and that computer is going to be on the back wall, and so is your printer, and so are some of those other devices. You may want to consider putting in what's called a network switch, right? Something that gives you multiple Ethernet ports. So that way you can plug one into your pre-wire, and then you can plug your printer into the next one, and so on and so forth. And I think that becomes your computer into the next one. That becomes one of those sort of hubs, right?
Yeah.
And I think the nice thing about that is that no matter what devices you're going to use nowadays for your home office, almost all of them are going to require some sort of network. And so just putting that switch in place seems like a really simple thing and really easy thing. But if you don't think about it and you don't take 2 seconds and go, oh, yeah, we should do that. And we should probably have a power outlet right next to it so we could plug these devices in. And so then you got to think to that next level. Maybe I should have a surge protector or a UPC, something like that, that you could maintain that connection the whole time. So all of those things now start to stack up. And so before you know it, you've got 5 pieces of gear. I've got the printer, I've got the desktop, I've got the switch, and I've got a UPC. And like, where does all that stuff go? Well, we should probably find a spot for it somewhere in the room so we kind of have a clean design. Maybe we can put it in a cabinet, that kind of an idea. Yeah. You mentioned very briefly there are some devices that have to be on Wi-Fi. So let's say I have one of the new MacBooks or a very nice cell phone. Yep, exactly. Yep. Mm-hmm. And I got to have Wi-Fi, right? Can't hardwire the device. Laptops and things like that. So what device would you put into that switch that would give me the best, strongest possible Wi-Fi signal?
Sure. I mean, wireless access point for sure is going to be your best bet, based on, getting you the best coverage in that space. Now, we've talked a lot about these devices over the past several months, and, it may not be the best placement if you've got one in the room next door, but in a lot of times, in a lot of homes here in Tennessee, especially, offices are usually at far corners of the house. And depending on the access point used, I usually try to have a triangle of Wi-Fi distribution utilizing those access points. So it ends up going in the office in most cases anyway. I say triangle just because it's easy in most of the houses here, but again, it needs to be customized to your space.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you say triangle, you mean the placement of the different access points, right? So yes. If I've got a bedroom on one corner and I've got a bonus room upstairs and I've got the office on the opposite side, then we're kind of creating this triangle effect of broadcast and of Wi-Fi access points. So you can sort of imagine no matter where you go in the house, you have access to your wireless connectivity. And I would also like to just call out real briefly, going back to the networking episode for a split second, there's that 2.4 and 5 gig band, right? And now we have, with Wi-Fi 6, a 6 gig band that has just become available as well. And it's not really being utilized by a ton of devices, but it is still available. So as you start to think through putting in that network switch or that PoE switch, as the technology changes, and as the needs change and as the devices continue to upgrade, because these are the kinds of devices that are going to be replaced every couple of years. These are all chip-driven technologies. These are the ones that are always going to be updated constantly. You're going to want to think about how you can keep those swappable. So permanent installation maybe not a good idea in some cases, as much as flexibility in terms of where your equipment's going to be installed and where it's going to ultimately live.
Right. And when I say triangle, like, just to kind of, emphasize, not necessarily just like top down, like, hey, 2 at the front and 1 in the middle and the back. I'm talking like 3D space too, right? Like maybe 1 on the bottom floor, maybe you have a second floor, maybe you have a basement, so we can kind of place those depending, again, on the access points we use. And like there are certain access points like the new Netgear ones that we sell that are all designed to be kind of in line with each other and in view of at least one of each of theirs so that they can kind of communicate properly. So, again, a lot of options out there. Just kind of wanted to clarify that.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So, as we kind of move into a new hybrid work model, a lot of folks have to work from home, and they are on some variation of a Zoom or a Teams call on a routine basis. So from a computer standpoint, what are some of the things that can help improve that experience that you might want to look for if you're looking at maybe getting a new computer?
Sure. So, I'm utilizing a desktop here currently, and I utilize that for many things. I mean, obviously recording the podcast is one of them. But, I have an interface that my computer connects with. So having, multiple USB ports that can do both 2.0 and 3.0 were important based on the transfer rate that I needed for the devices that are connected, as well as, needs for the cameras that I use. Outside of this, I do some gaming and some other graphics-based design work. So having a higher-end video card was important to me. So I think this is a 3090. Obviously, you upgrade these things every 6 months, so it's hard to stay up to date with them. But kind of designing a computer around your space is very important. We do have some experience selling computers in a retail environment, and a lot of folks come in and they usually, say, "Oh, I'm just gonna watch YouTube or look at emails," and a lot of times they're buying a computer that isn't robust enough for them. So designing that computer around your space, in my opinion, is very important.
Yep. And you can think through, I think, some of the things like, do I want to have another monitor? It depends on your workflow, right? So there are some questions that you can ask yourself, like, yeah, I want to be able to see a dashboard of 6 or 7 things, and that all needs to be up at one time. Well, you know what? Maybe we should think about where a second monitor or maybe even a small TV should go in that particular home office. If you want to watch the news while you're doing your work and other things, and you want to have that on in the background, and you may want to send the video signal right from your computer over to this television or to this other monitor, well, then, yeah, it kind of makes sense. We should think through the ports that are on that machine, and let's just make sure, hey, there's an HDMI out. As simple as that seems in one sense, if you don't think through that step, then you end up stuck because you've bought a machine that doesn't have that. And now you got to buy the adapter. And now you got to buy this other cord. And then before you know it, you've got this long cord that's hanging out and your office looks junky. And we've gone back to the utilitarian and we've lost this concept of design, right?
Yep.
It's like we shot ourselves in the foot before we ever got started because we didn't think through what we were trying to do.
Exactly.
Now, you did mention, and I'm glad that you did, that you use an audio interface, and that you do. Obviously, we're doing the podcast, so like we you're seeing our faces from a camera. So, can you maybe talk a little bit about what an audio interface is, and what some of the benefits are of using an audio interface?
Sure. So, audio interfaces are typically used for utilizing better quality audio components to record or output from your computer. So, for instance, I'm using a Shure SM7B to recorder into my interface, which then connects via a USB-C through my computer. Now, here we're using a specific recording software that allows us to both be remote and kind of be together on the same screen. But think of the pro audio world like Pro Tools or any of the other ones out there. It allows you to record into that at a much higher bit rate and higher quality, just to giving you higher quality sound. And I mentioned output as well. Typically, those devices have output, so you use the better quality audio outs of those devices, depending on, again, the functionality. Maybe you're going into some recording monitors or a better pair of headphones or a headphone amp, right?
Yep.
So,
Absolutely. So it's a little box, right? Just to translate that allows your sound to be better, both signal coming in and signal going out. And so I don't know about you, but I love to listen to music when I have to do paperwork. It's one of those things, and I think we've said it on previous episodes. It's actually one of the times I listen to music the most is when I just have to, churn and burn and get some stuff out. So having that better audio interface, sometimes it's called a sound card if it's actually installed into your computer. And so if you're building your own PC and you're like, oh yeah, I got to put a sound card in it, that's exactly what we're talking about. And then going to the microphones and the connection types, I've seen some of these like USB microphones and things like that. They do a nice job, but the audio interface allows you to go to that next level. And so this goes along with the presentation. Do you want to be a professional? Do you want to, come across a certain way? Or is it okay that, we're just kind of doing, the bare minimum? And I know that sounds kind of mean to say in a sense, but it makes a big difference if your whole livelihood is now based on your ability to communicate digitally. I don't think it's unfair to say, no, you should invest into that appearance. The same way that lawyers have to put on a suit and they have to stand before a judge and they want to show respect, we have to show up in the digital space to do the exact same thing. So you really need to put that on your radar to make sure that you're going to present the absolute best way that you can.
Yeah, 100%. And I also think, one of the things that a lot of people don't think about, and obviously you and I think have a little bit, not on purpose, but just kind of who we are, but your background that you're going to have behind you is important. So, obviously I like a certain band that I don't think anyone's answered the question of yet. And I've got these cool fancy lights that I can turn on and off and make them change different colors, which I'm not going to do that right now. But, kind of creating that correct environment for what you're using it for is important. And I know there's been plenty of calls. I was on a call last week where a guy had two Panamax M5400 power management line filtration devices there behind him, and then he had like 4 monitors on the opposite wall, and we were like, dude, what is this guy doing? And he's like, oh, I need all of them for work. I'm like, you're helping us. What do you mean? He's like, yeah, I just split them all to different monitors so I can work on multiple things and support you guys. Cool. I want your job, Like, I mean, I say that I've got 4 screens in front of me and an iPad and 2 phones, so I guess that
we're right there
but,
anywhere.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Well, and I agree with you. Thinking through the monitor concept is one of those that it makes your environment, because I think that's really where we're going, right? It's the environment that we're in that leads to the productivity. And if we don't get the environment right and we feel out of balance, then we can't do our best work, which means we can't do our best for our clients and our customers. And that's really what it comes back to, right? Is making sure we're doing the best work possible. So we need the tools to make sure that we're doing that. And I do think the idea of getting a better quality camera, it's not like you have to go crazy in terms of those things, but that makes a substantial difference in the appearance. And so as you kind of think through now all the different extra components, you start realizing, well, maybe I should have a desk with a couple layers, right? Maybe I should have that extra keyboard that sits on the little rolly thing that comes down from the bottom of the desk. So you're going to think through your desk maybe a little bit differently. And all of that, again, going back to it, work with your designer, work with your integrator to make sure that you've got the correct wires and cables necessary to make sure that everything plugs in and works the way that it's supposed to. So cannot stress that enough. Okay. If I was worried about my data and I was worried about where I was going to store said data, what's a simple device that I could add to a computer or to a home office that would allow me extra storage?
Sure. There's several options out there. I know QNAP makes them, Synology, but essentially you can create your own server that We'll utilize multiple hard drives that you can, kind of, if you want, put on a VPN and give yourself your own cloud access so only you can access it. I've got, one of my best buddies down here. He built a complete Unraid server, not just for cloud backup, but also for media storage for his home. So he, and put a lot of the physical copies of movies that he had into that system. So he has multiple uses for one box that he keeps locked in his server closet, so nobody can ever get to it.
Yep.
And honestly, I know where it is because, I helped him with it. But, anybody getting into his house, you're not going to find it, which is kind of cool.
Well, and the reason I bring it up is because you think about adding an extra hard drive, right? So you can store some data. Then you start thinking about all the things that you may want to have on that, and this may change the design of your office, right? So let's say that you had a security system with cameras that go around the perimeter of the house. You want to be able to see them. It may make sense to put your NVR or your network video recorder into that office space. And a lot of them will have an HDMI output that allows you to go to a monitor or TV. So you start thinking through, you may want to pre-wire for having a space where you might put a small rack. You may have some of those things local. And as we've added more and more gear, you start thinking about it. It's like, all right, I went from 4 to 5 to 6 to now we're getting close to 7 or 8, maybe even 10 devices. And so you need a place to put those things. And it really does, in the ultimate expression of a home office, right? You start to realize like, oh no, you could very easily, right, get to a place where you may want to put a small shelf system or a small rack or something similar that sits in the corner that allows for all this equipment to work and to function correctly. All right, let's say that I want to put a turntable in my office. I've seen a lot of guys do this. Are there any turntables or types of turntables that you might recommend if I just wanted to do something pretty clean and pretty simple?
Yeah. So I actually used to have one in my office. I don't anymore. It's downstairs on my main system now. But the cool thing is that we kind of passed over it with speakers a little bit, but I had powered speakers in the room at the time, and they actually had I used a phono preamp, connected that, and then connected directly to the speakers, so I didn't need any amplification because the speakers already had it built in. Fast forward to now, I have passive, and I would need a receiver and the turntable, because the receiver would need to power the speakers. However, there are a couple options out there from Project and from Macintosh that have turntables that have amplification built into them. So if you like the sound of passive speakers over powered speakers, depending on who you are, if you like that passive sound, but you don't want the extra receiver, you get the Macintosh turntable with the amp built in, and boom, you're good to go. You put your vinyl on, you turn it on, your volume control's right there, and you're good to go.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm glad that you went there, and I was hoping that you would, because those types of turntables, whether you do one with a built-in phono preamp, right, going to those powered speakers, or you do one with the amplifier built in, means that you don't have the extra boxes. And so in an office, which is typically a smaller space, where that space is at a premium, but you still want to do something, then this becomes one of those options that makes a very quick and very clean type of an experience. And there's not a lot of wires, there's not a lot of extra cords and cables and things that you have to worry about. And I'm reminded, honestly, of a story for a client of mine that we've done a lot of work for, honestly, very extensive. And his main listening room is his office. And it's kind of genius because whenever he brings clients over to the house, it becomes a great talking point. and it becomes something that they can kind of connect and really, build a lot of rapport and build a real relationship, because they're talking about music. They're talking about something that they both enjoy and things along those lines. And so even if you have a little bit of a bigger space, it might be a good idea, especially if it's client facing, to put something a little bit nicer in. Don't be afraid of going to an integrated amp and a turntable and a nice pair of speakers, and give folks the correct experience about who it is that they're going to work with and the type of things that they can expect, especially as we continue in our gig economy and people are working from home. It's like you have to invest into your space a little bit in order to make sure that clients feel comfortable. And so I think it's one of those things that really does kind of it's not just a nice to have; it becomes kind of a need to have, depending on how you set some things up. So,
correct, and definitely, if you're listening to this, check out the MTI 100 Macintosh integrated turntable, because it is
amazing,
sweet. It is sweet. It's got tubes.
Yes.
It's cool.
That thing is. I'm really excited. Honestly, some of the things they've done recently, over the last few years, I wasn't a huge fan of, but at the same time, I think they're trying to really bring that brand into the future. And some of the most recent additions have been absolutely stellar. Really, really, really happy to see what they're doing.
I agree. I mean, it kind of goes back to, since we're on it, they really do focus on the home office. I mean, they've got a couple of new products. I say new products. They've been around for a little bit, but they are essentially 2-channel systems in a box.
Yep.
So it's a, probably 3.5, 4 foot wide box with, in the center, you've got the cool Macintosh logo and some meters, with speakers, and then a woofer built into the bottom of the base of it. So it's designed to sit on a shelf, but it's designed to give you a premium experience. It's, and they actually have a Grateful Dead one that's out right now, which, I mean,
awesome.
I'm not a huge fan of the Grateful Dead. Like, I'm not, the biggest fan out there, but it's a awesome specialty piece that, if you like it, definitely check it out as well.
Well, and so it's funny because as you're saying that, I'm thinking back to like some of the places where I've seen Macintosh in movies, like the John Wicks and The Departed, and some of those things, and it's like their brand just sort of gives off this vibe that is unlike anything else. I don't know how else to describe it. There's just something so otherworldly and so classic at the exact same time, that they kind of managed to accomplish. That's not to say that other brands aren't good. I mean, there's plenty of different options out there, but they just really do capture not just sonically an amazing sound, but also just an iconic look. And so it dresses up the office, right? It dresses up, are you going to spend a bunch of money on a very nice desk? You might as well spend a bunch of money, quite honestly, on a very nice stereo to go right along with it. So it really does kind of go hand in hand.
Yep. And everybody needs a PS2K powered subwoofer. Just look it up. It's 2,000 watts. It's like 1,000 pounds. Check that out too.
There
for your home, for your home office.
For your home office.
I'm kidding. Okay.
All right. Well, I want to ask a quick question. Do you have any new demo tracks that you would like to share, Mark?
Oh goodness.
I know I've thrown you on the spot.
No. I mean, honestly, I may have mentioned the Midnight at some point in time, but they've been one of my favorite bands to listen to pretty much all the time, whether I'm trying to get hyped up or relax or anything along those lines. It's, electronic meets actual drum instruments meets guitar meets saxophone. And one of my favorite songs to demo from them is, Dance by Yourself. Is that what it's called? Hold on, I'm going to look it up here.
Yep.
Just so I can remember it. Dance with somebody. Good Lord.
Dance with somebody.
Dance by yourself. Dance by yourself is the lyrics. I was just thinking dance with somebody is the next line. I should have thought of that. But no, it's a fantastic track. It's got all of what I just mentioned in it, especially when the saxophone kicks in. It's hard to beat. One of another favorite album of theirs for me to demo is a lot of the tracks off of Endless Summer, which is one of their earlier albums, but yeah, some great tracks on that one. Goodness, Sunset, Vampires,
all very good stuff.
Yes. So I'm not just saying it because it's a great album. It's great demo content.
Yep. Well, and I'm going to take folks to David Guetta 7, which is an older 2018 release. And David Guetta, as a producer, does work with a lot of other artists. And so you'll see, him featuring, a ton of folks. And there's something about that whole record. Like, I could call out one song. I don't need to, because you could put that thing on and just start to finish, go to town. And his production quality is truly, truly on another level. Just all sorts of ear candy, really, really well mixed, amazing vocals. And if you don't like one track, you can always, there's so many different options, quite honestly, that there's always something that you can find. So definitely check out David Guetta. All right. This has been The Sound of Design
with Mark
and Dan. And again, we are really, really grateful for all of you guys watching and listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to reach out to us via thesoundofdesign.com, more than happy to help with any of your design needs. So we can do some consulting. If you just want to bounce some ideas off us, please feel free. We're more than happy to help. And we will see you guys on the next episode.